And welcome into the OCR Lounge. Today we have a special treat for you. It's the class of 1988. He's being inducted to the Athletic Hall of Fame tonight. It's one of those cool things that you get to meet a legend that wore the Patriot uniform from the Wayback Files. Class of 1988. He holds the state record for the 110-meter high hurdles at 14.57 at that time. It's been translated to 14.6 now. With fully automatic timing, but it's now, we went through and looked at all of his accomplishments. He's won so many blue ribbons, gold medals, so many state championships. This one's going to be fun. We're going to go back in the Wayback Files with Randy Luster. Stay tuned to this exciting episode, all brought to you by Brown Bottling Group. And Randy, welcome into today's show. Such a treat to have you. We've seen your name on that record board and in our record books for track and field for so long. So nice to finally meet you.
Thank you. Glad to be here. What an honor.
Yeah. So let's go and just knock the top off, right?
Okay.
Tonight is a cool night for you.
Yeah, it's going to be really exciting.
I know you were here last year as just an attendee.
Yeah. Sam Ray was inducted last year.
Yeah.
I was here for that. That's right.
What does it mean to you, A, to get that phone call, B, to be, hey, you're going into the Hall of Fame, which we talked about that earlier, like how cool that is. It's kind of
right.
Those moments like you're a team captain, now you're a Hall of Fame inductee. What does that mean to you?
Well, going back to that phone call you mentioned, Coach DeWeese called me and, actually I guess a lot of emotion, first is shock, excitement, very honored for that. And, I just hung up the phone and called my wife, called my daughter, called, a lot of my old school friends, and, it was really exciting. It's quite an honor. I'm real excited about it.
Are there any tears?
Oh, of course, yeah. Yeah.
I think it's just one of those cool moments that
Yeah.
you start looking at, when you're in the moment of high school, and we'll get into your track career and your football career. There's so much to unpack. But you get that phone call and you're like, wow. Was it that moment of like, it was all worth it?
Yeah, it's been a long time for one, but back then, we really didn't think about it. I never thought I would be here today.
Right.
Back then we were just trying to do our best, and we worked hard at it, and we won a lot and we lost some, so it was a lot of fun.
But you won a lot. You won a lot.
I tried.
You won a lot.
I tried.
When you go and start looking at this, and I'll put all this in the show notes. But even from 8th grade, when we start looking at your track career, let's start track and then we'll go to football career.
Okay.
But track was just, you ran varsity as an 8th grader. And I counted, you have like 14 individual blue ribbons, gold medals. You look at the state record. I want to go back to your 6-year-old self. I know that's those Wayback Files. Pre-MRA, before all that happened. What was it about track?
My 6-year-old self, that's a long time ago. As a young child, my mom, my stepfather, my uncle, my grandparents just, really wanted me to do something with myself. They'd give me a football and send me out in the yard and play. And it probably, going up to 8th grade at McClure Academy, I was 6'2", probably 140 pounds. I was light, and just some reason I like to run, and it was something. Being so young and competing with the older guys.
Right. So I think I'm going through this stuff. You were competing in high school in 7th grade. When you start looking at that, did a coach just be like, "Hey, you're gonna be really good at track. I know that you are because." Maybe it's the way you ran, because I want to get in how did hurdles normally, and this is what we do with kids now, is like if you're one of the top level athletes, we're going to put you on hurdles, right? You have some coordination, you have speed, you can understand your body control. When did hurdles come into play? Did a coach be like, Randy, I think you'd be really good at hurdles? Did that ever happen? Was there ever one of those moments?
It's probably just process of elimination. They didn't have anybody else to do it. And, at McClure, and the low hurdles obviously were a lot easier, but, the high hurdles are I mean, they're quite hard. I mean, the hurdles are as high as your hip.
Right.
And I don't know, it just, I guess because I was kind of tall and lanky at the time, it just was a little easier for me at that time. But when you start competing and you start winning, it just creates more of a drive to win more.
Right. So 400-meter lows, that's interesting because we don't have that event anymore.
That's
What
right.
was that like? The 400-meter low, I mean, for the guys and girls that are listening to this podcast and watching this, they do that in college now. They do the 400 intermediate. But 400 lows in high school, I mean, that's probably one of the toughest races when you compare that to a 400 or a 300-meter hurdles right now.
You felt like you were dying at the end. I mean, you know, you bend over, try to catch your breath, and sometimes you feel like you can't catch it. But you know, for the ones that don't know, the 400-meter low hurdles, that's a quarter of a mile, jumping over hurdles. And interesting fact, I think it was my junior year, maybe my senior year, but there was a prep runner. He and I were always neck and neck at the finish line. So a lot of people would come out just to, you know, some came to watch the high hurdles, but a lot of people like to watch the low hurdles because the prep guy and I were always neck and neck at the end. And I would win some and he would win some. You know, I never dominated in that one, but he probably did more. But interesting fact that the state record for the low hurdles, I had to look it up the other day. I think it was like 54.62 or something like that. And I ran a 54.64.
Oh, wow.
200ths of a second.
Which is faster than a blink.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so I almost got that record. I didn't get it, but
Wow.
I would have loved to have had that one. And then they quit running that race. And,
You did that at the Meet of Champions? Was that one? Or was that it?
I don't think the Meet of Champions was over. I'm pretty sure they quit doing the Meet of Champions after my 9th grade year.
Okay, gotcha.
And so I ran in that in the 8th and 9th grade.
That's incredible.
And
For all you track people, to be doing that at an early age, I mean, you look 8th, 9th grade, you're 14, 15 years old competing against 17 and 18-year-olds, and you're dominating them.
well, and two, a lot of people that don't know back then, you only had 3 divisions in high school. There was single A, double A, and triple A. And MRA was triple A, and we really should have been a double A because we had a very low attendance at the school. I mean, we only had 52 people in our senior class. We barely made a football team. A lot of times we would have half-line scrimmages because we didn't have enough to do a full scrimmage. And but anyway, so we were in AAA, and there was only 2 conferences. You had North and South. There wasn't, you know, multiple divisions and conferences. But so the way the Meet of Champions worked back then is if you they had the state meet, and that's all they have now. Now the state meet, and that's it. You're done. But back then they would take the top. I think it was 2 in each competition, and they would take those to run with the other divisions. So you'd have single A, double A, and triple A running together at the Meet of Champions.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know why they quit doing that.
I wish they'd bring it back.
Wouldn't, I mean, that'd be great, wouldn't it?
Because now you have the overall, because you have, I mean, right now we have like 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A, 5A, 6A. I mean, it's
Right.
tons of them. But to take that and say, who's the best of the best?
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, track's different than football or baseball. I mean, it's you against your time, and it's you in that lane race, or you in the shot put or discus ring, or you in the pole, whatever it is. I mean, it's you versus yourself, essentially, for that time. I want to talk about this cool fact. I've never been able to dunk a basketball. How early of an age were you able to dunk a basketball?
Well, it was in the 7th grade. Yeah. And a lot of my friends from back then remember it well, playing against us. It was at McClure in the 7th grade. And a lot of the friends and teammates I met in high school we would play against each other in junior high. And they would talk about the days where we would come out of the dressing room pregame warm-up, because they wouldn't let you do it during the game. It would actually be a fine or a penalty, whatever.
Yeah, it'd be a technical foul.
Technical foul, yeah. So I would dunk it in pregame, and it would just drive the other parents nuts because they were like, "Who's this 18-year-old kid on the 7th grade team?" Because I was the same height. I've been 6'2" since I left the 6th grade.
Wow.
But I was just so I was nothing but bones back then. I was 140 pounds, maybe soaking wet.
That's incredible. All right, so McClure closes. Enter Old Canton Road. You come to Madison Ridgeland Academy. How was that transition?
Yeah, it's an interesting story. We in the ninth grade we found out that McClure was closing, and so a lot of us didn't know what we were going to do, and then so some of us were approached by Brandon Academy, Prep, JA, MRA, and coaches are dealing with parents trying to basically recruit players from McClure because we didn't know at that time it was going to turn into Hillcrest. We just thought it was going to close, but it later Hillcrest bought it. But anyway, we had a track meet here at MRA, and I just remember Coach Carlisle coming up to me, and he brought Sam Ray, Jeff Brown, and Pat Lane, and introduced them to me, and they were a big part of me coming here. They were just cool, down-to-earth guys that seemed to really like me, and I liked them. And Prep didn't do that. JA didn't do that. Brandon didn't. And it was just a moment where, this is where I need to be.
Wow. It's incredible. And then we're fixing to talk about all the fun stuff that you did here, all the records, all the sports you played, multi-sport.
You're gonna have to edit this, but let me do this real quick. Okay. I heard my phone beep. I could have sworn I put it on silent. I just want to make sure it doesn't do it again.
You're fine.
Sorry. But,
all right. So we go into football season. It's your first season here. You come to MRA. Football is the first thing on, right? Then you got basketball and track and baseball, which you played all. Let's talk about football season. How was that transition of playing for Coach Carlisle?
Ooh, wow, playing for Coach Carlisle was pretty rough. I never thought he liked me. He was really hard on all of us, particularly me. And but my 10th grade year, we had a lot of great talent on that team. Mm-hmm. That team, we actually went to the state championship, got the mess beat out of us by Washington. I think they beat us like 20-0.
Oh, wow.
But we had a great team, had a lot of great athletes on that team. And my first year, all I did was punt that year. So I didn't play anything other than punter in my 10th grade year.
All right, so you averaged over 40 yards per punt.
I did.
As a sophomore. That's incredible. I share the same love. I was a punter as well. I never averaged over 40 yards my sophomore, junior, or senior year. So what about punting? How'd that come to be? I mean, you're 6'2", probably 160, right? Receiver, tight end, whatever. But punting, how'd you come to be a punter?
Again, just being tall and lanky, and I was pretty flexible. Stretched a lot, and again, when I was a young kid, my grandfather bought me 3 footballs, and I'd just go out in the street and. I'd kick them down the street, and I'd go pick them up and kick them back down the street. And we didn't have a lot of kids in our neighborhood, so that was the only thing I could do as a kid was just go kick the ball down the street and go pick it up and do it.
Did you ever try to kick it over the power lines and stuff like that?
That's right, yeah. Trying to kick it up in the trees. I think I might still have one in a pine tree down there.
So with that, I mean, you were named all conference your sophomore year, which is very unheard of, as that is. But when we start looking at your career as a football player, I mean, we can go through your most valuable defensive player, your MVP, your senior year. We can talk about all that stuff. What stands out to you the most in your football career here is the defining moments like, you know what, I'm glad I picked MRA? Do you have one of those?
Again, it was so long ago. It's been almost 40 years.
Or a moment that you're like, this is my favorite moment.
Yeah.
I love this moment when this happened. Just a personal story about that.
Yeah, I would have to think about that. Probably the biggest thing is just the camaraderie with the team. I don't know if you knew this, but Coach Carlisle would take us to camp for 2 days.
Campus?
Off campus. We went to Strong River Campground.
How long would y'all go?
It was like a week.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Cabins with no air conditioning in July or August.
So it's like a Junction Boy type deal.
Oh man,
with Bear Bryant.
Yeah, it was a mess. I mean, you should have seen how happy we were to leave that place. But But yeah, you really get to know a lot of your teammates when you do stuff like that. So that's why he did it.
I can see right now in your face, you're like, I still remember that like it was yesterday.
Oh yeah, it was one of the most miserable times of your life. In August with no air conditioning, and you go out and it wasn't a field like a stadium here. It was just like a cow pasture, and coach had all the pylons and everything set up. We did all of our agilities and things, and 2 days. So you do it in the morning, you go in, you have lunch, and go back out and do it again, and
wow,
it was something.
What about football did you love the most? Besides the camaraderie, was there a point where you're like, I like linebacker, I like tight end, I like punting? Was there a point where you're like, you know what, I love doing this? Because later on we'll talk about how you pursued this as a collegiate athlete.
Yeah. Really, I think it was the teammates. It's like a family.
Yeah.
It was our family, and but I would say when I really started, so we had a game in Washington actually. My junior year, I was playing defensive end. Pat Lane was playing tackle, and Pat tore his knee that game, and so coach moved me down to tackle, and didn't know it, but I just immediately it felt like I've been doing it all my life, and got really good at it. And then we played prep the next week, and I think we lost that game. But I remember the car ride home. I remember the radio announcers post game talking about. They gave me the defensive MVP that game. I don't remember how many tackles or whatever I had, but. I'm not going to mention his name, but there was a friend of mine that was a running back for prep at that time. And years later, I ran into him, and he was like, man, I don't know. We tried to run away from you, and you would run me down in the backfield from behind. He said, I don't know how you did it. But anyway, it became natural to me playing defensive tackle. I could get in the backfield before the guard or tackle in front of me could.
So how big were you playing D tackle at that time?
Well, I was 6'2". I was probably 220.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah,
and I asked you that because you're an all-state punter in '86 and all that stuff, but you're 6'2", 220. You don't think about hurdlers being 220 pounds, 230. You know what I mean?
I was the biggest
guy.
D
tackles.
I was the biggest guy out there running hurdles. That's for sure. Yeah.
So, on that note. You were named your senior year. Coach Carlisle named you MVP of the whole team, all that stuff. So now you're transitioning, go from football to next was basketball, but I want to go to track. I want to live in the track world for a little bit. Because when you start looking at all the things you've done, I mean, you wrote them out, but wow.
Well, that was only the ones that I went through a bunch of boxes. My mom had kept stuff, and so that was actually only the things that she kept.
Yeah, I'm going to put the picture that you sent me of all your ribbons and stuff. That is incredible. I know for a lot of kids these days they get the ribbons and you see them at track meets. They're on the ground, all that stuff. Yeah. Like for you and I loved my ribbons when I was in high school. I want to keep them and go back in the way back files. But let's kind of go backwards. To now. Let's go from your senior year and work back for track, because during your senior year to junior year, you were on fire for track. Like it was, I can go first place 110-meter high hurdles. That was at state. Your 12th grade year, first place shot, first place disc, first place in the mile relay, first place in the 400-meter low hurdles, first place in the 110 high hurdles. I mean, you start saying all those things, pretty daggum good. And then you go all the way to your 11th grade year where you had the state record of 14.57. What about track motivated you? I mean, a lot of times you don't see athletes put up these kind of accolades unless they're really passionate about it. For you, there's a passion here. Let's talk about that.
How did you get in here?
Yeah, it's a funny story. I didn't do as well my senior year, and so after football was over, I had a few offers. Ended up going to Delta State, mainly because Sam Ray was already there, and so anyway, I'd already signed a scholarship at Delta State. Wasn't thinking about track my senior year, and I'll never forget. I was leaving school early, and was pulling out. You know, it's different back then. You actually would pull out where the gate is now, where it's closed. And I was leaving, and Coach DeWeese came around the corner of the building, and he said, "Luster, where do you think you're going?" And I said, "Coach, I'm going home." And he said, "Well, you know we got track practice today." And I said, "No, Coach, I'm not doing track today. I'm going to Delta State to play football." I didn't think anything else about it until I guess it was the next day at school. I saw Coach Carlisle coming down the hall a mile away, and he was looking through every door, looking, and I was like, "Phew, I wonder who he's going after today." And he saw me in class, and he said, "Look that." I didn't know what I'd done, you know, and we walked down to his office, and he sat me down in front of his desk. He said, "What's this blankety blank I hear about you not running track?" And I said, "Well, Coach, I'm going to go to Delta State and play football." And he looked over at me and he said, "Lester, do you want to graduate?" And that's when it hit me. I was like, "Ooh, I better get out there and start running." Yeah. And so I did. Anyway, so it's funny. The first track meet was that weekend, and I was out of shape. And I didn't know it, but the news cameras came out that day to film.
Because you had set the state record.
Yeah.
And
so I remember on the newscast, they didn't show the high hurdles, but they showed the low hurdles, and I was so out of shape I got beat that day. And I was so embarrassed. So I had to try harder. You know?
I get it.
But yeah, back then we didn't enjoy running track. Like I said, it was something when you got finished running, you felt like you were dying.
Yeah.
And but so I do have a regret that I didn't try harder my senior year.
I think it's a lesson to a lot of people listening. Our student athletes are going to listen to this, of going out and giving it your all. Especially when you have a God-given talent. I mean, God blessed you with athletic ability to go and do. I mean, you're a four-sport athlete. Did you play golf? Did you do golf in high school?
We played recreationally, but golf was definitely not my sport.
Yeah, I'm just saying you're a multi-sport athlete. But you go back and I want to go back to that day where you set that record, because I think that's one that stood the test of time. I mean, that has been here forever. There is a young man who has a chance. He got close last year. He's gonna get to meet you today. That's one of those cool things that you get to meet that icon that you're going after. I mean, he's seen it. There's all these 100, 200, 400. The 402, 4x2 has fallen off, but that one that stands in 1987 has been the one he's been eyeing since a freshman here.
Yeah.
So when that race happens, take us through that race.
Well, it was in Clarksdale, and the week before, I think it was maybe at prep, but I broke the record at prep. I think I broke it a couple of times prior to the state meet, and I was just really nervous because you can't hold a state record unless you do it at the state meet.
That's right.
And no better way to mess something up than to hit a hurdle. But I remember I hit either the first or the second hurdle. Luckily, I just kind of barely clipped it. But I remember thinking in my mind, "Oh crap! I just screwed up. What I've been working for, I'm not going to make it." And I guess it just put me into overdrive. Just went the rest of the hurdles as hard as I could, and I just never forget when they said, "You did it," and so it was something that. And I hit the first hurdle.
I think it's cool though that a lot of the track accolades that you see, and when everybody goes to the state track meet, they want to see, and then there it is, one that people are like, that's never going to be touched. That's never going to be touched, and that you have one of those records that has never been touched. Going back to what made hurdles appealing to you? Just because did Coach Luis like, you're going to run hurdles, or was it like, you know what, I want this challenge? Because you did a lot. I mean, you threw the shot, you threw the discus, you were a 400-meter guy, you ran on relays. I mean, you're a decathlete. You're a multi-sport guy, right? If you were in today's world, you'd be a decathlete.
Right. Yeah, and that's what Coach DeWeese always said. He wished I'd do some decathlons.
Yeah.
I never did one. But, my thing was I was like, a quarter mile, a 400-meter run was about as far as I could make it. I couldn't do 2 laps. There wasn't any way. So, the mile relay, I could do that because it was only 400 meters, or the 400-meter relay. But back to the hurdles, I started that at McClure, and I guess I may have done it in the 7th grade. I don't remember, but I remember in the 8th grade because I remember going to the meet of champions in the 8th and the 9th grade.
See a lot of kids at our track meets now. They'll grab a hurdle and they'll just start hopping over it. And I had that image when I was reading that about what they're going to talk about you tonight when they induct you in the Hall of Fame. I was like, I wonder if he was one of those kids that just put a hurdle up and just started doing it himself and started jumping over. Were you ever one of those guys?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that's going way back. That's going in the way back.
Coach
years.
Luis did have a lot of influence, when I got here, and he taught me a couple of things to try, and as far as practice, one of the biggest things was just getting out of the gate, quick, and once you get going, it's interesting that the hurdles were separated enough to where when I came down, there was only 2 steps, and then you had another one.
Right.
And but he helped a lot. He showed me a few things to practice that you normally don't do when you just run. Jumping hurdles, it's a little bit different.
As an athlete, you have all these accolades. What's your greatest accomplishment as an athlete in high school?
Greatest accomplishment as an athlete
Besides the
in
record,
high school.
is there something that sticks out as like, what, this is why I did it?
Yeah, I guess one of my most exciting moments was my senior year after football season. Coach Carlisle came and got me out of class, and we were walking down to his office, and he said, because I was all conference my sophomore and junior year. So my senior year, we're walking into his office. He says, Lester, I got some bad news for you. You didn't make all conference this year. And I just kind of thought about it, okay. And he goes, you made all conference most valuable player, or most valuable defensive player.
Yeah,
And so that was quite an accomplishment. Again, there was only 2 conferences, North and South, so I could say, hey, I was the best defensive player.
Wow.
In the South State in 1988 or 87 season.
Yeah. How was Coach Carlisle? I mean, you talked about y'all going off and that. How did he help shape you in going and playing college, going and participating in collegiate athletics? Because I think it takes a hard, stern coach to kind of change the landscape of how you think, put you through hard things that make it make sense, right? You're taking 2-a-days and you're going off campus. His practices, I've heard, were nightmares, right? What did he instill in you that you took on, maybe until today?
Well, it's just like you said. He's hard on you, and we didn't. As a young kid back then, you didn't really know, what you were learning, but you learned discipline, a lot of discipline, and how to work great with others and things. And Coach Carlisle was good about that. And like I said, he was really tough, and most of the time I think he didn't even like me, but I know he did.
Yeah.
He just wanted everybody to be the best that they could be, and if you weren't, he was going to push you harder.
Would you have come back out for track if he wouldn't have sought you out and found you?
Honestly, if he didn't make me do it, I probably would have tried to get out of it.
Yeah, I think that's a lasting impression as a coach.
Yeah.
As a coach has on an athlete. You can kind of see that in you right now. It's like he kind of sparked that. Like he had enough belief in you to be like, you need to go and do this for MRA.
Yeah, that's right. Quit thinking about yourself and
right.
Do it for
yeah.
the
Believe
team.
in something bigger than yourself. Do it for your team.
That's
What?
Right.
So graduate, we go to Delta State. Who was the head coach then? At Delta
Don
State?
Skelton.
Don Skelton. Wow. Don Skelton was there when I was there.
Was he?
Not the head football coach, but.
Yeah.
So how'd that all go? You're a fantastic athlete. You're defensive MVP. You're named team MVP by Coach Carlisle. You're an excellent track runner. So you're total athlete. You go to Delta State.
Yeah, and interesting, Delta State didn't have a track team. I don't know if they did when you were there.
They didn't.
So there wasn't any running track there. But, I committed to Delta State long before I even went and visited Cleveland. And as most people don't know, it's in the middle of nowhere. And it's just flat and, farmland.
That's it.
And so it was interesting. But yeah, I went there as a punter and a defensive end, defensive tackle. Unfortunately, I had a couple of concussions. We had a guy that was tailback. His nickname was Rock. And he ran over me one day and completely just about knocked me out. And anyway, I had a couple of concussions, and I was told by the doctors I couldn't have any more contact. So I quit the team.
Oh, wow.
And that summer, and Coach Skelton, we didn't have cell phones back then.
No.
But got a call at home, and Mom said, Coach Skelton is on his way down here to see you. And I said, oh. And so anyway, we went and had lunch, and he told me, he said, just come back. I understand, you're not supposed to have contact. Just punt. And back then, you didn't just have punters. You had to play every position.
Right.
In high school, we played both ways. We never came off the field. But anyway, he came back and got me, and so I went back and finished up at Delta State playing as punter.
So thinking back through that, you had Coach Carlisle, who got you out of this class to say you're going to run track. You had quit football because of this, and you had Coach Skelton come back and say, so the two words that come to my mind is you're leaving a lasting impression on people for your character, for your athletic ability, and being named team captain, which we hadn't even touched on yet. That's the ultimate team award. So your character and your accountability with others. So lasting impressions on these coaches. Where do you credit that to? Because they're seeking you out. Normally, in today's world, if you quit, they're like, oh, I'll go find somebody else. But Coach Carlisle sought you out to get you back out. Coach Skelton calls you and says, no, you're coming back.
Yeah, like I said earlier, back in that day, you really don't think about it, but they saw more in me than I did, and which is an honor, and glad I didn't quit.
Right.
I tried a couple of times, but glad I didn't quit.
Yeah. Speaking of glad you didn't quit, you held a record there as well. What record was that at Delta State?
I had the highest average in a game with a minimum of 5 punts.
You know how many times I tried to chase that as a punter at Delta State? I saw that. I was like, I'm chasing that. I'm chasing that.
I didn't think about that. That's right.
Yep.
It actually got broke in, I think it was 99.
It was. It was.
I think he beat me out by like a foot.
Blake Kennigsberger.
Yeah. Yeah.
The only reason I know that is in the media guys, they have the names. Yeah. And I was like, my goodness, really? This is crazy. So
it was close.
Here's a fun fact, and we share a lot of similarities. We both played at Delta State, both were punters. You knew Sam Ray. Mm-hmm. I won the Sam Ray Award at Delta State.
Awesome. Yeah.
So you have God winks everywhere. I had no idea who Sam Ray really was.
Yeah.
I get to MRA. Sam Ray's from MRA. So God winks of how you end up in places. That's kind of sentimental to me. Yeah. But let's dive into this. And I want this to make sense to our people that are going to listen to this, because there's a lot of times we can get caught up in accolades. We can get caught up in awards and times and championships and all that stuff. In today's world, how's an athlete supposed to be? You're having a hard time, man, that's a long time ago, but you're very humble about it. When today's world tells them, man, it's all about me. What's one word of advice that you would give to these high school athletes? They're hey, if your coach is pouring in you, listen to them.
Yeah. And I mentioned it a while ago, I regret not trying harder my senior year. So if anything I could say to the athletes of today is, don't quit, do your best. You never know, what you're capable of doing. And just work hard at it and listen to your coaches. Listen to your family. Records are meant to be broken.
Right.
And
did you ever run for the record, or did you just run to run? I'm going to go to win the race. If the record falls, record falls.
Well, I think it just, we really weren't thinking about it at the time. And then, it's probably a certain point where Coach DeWeese probably came to me and said, hey, do you know you're real close to breaking the record. And, you know, I didn't have it on a wall somewhere or a vision that, hey, I'm going to break that record. You know, it wasn't like that.
Yeah.
You know, we were just running as hard as we could, and then all of a sudden it was like, hey, you're about to break the record. And
A little bit extra motivation.
yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We've talked about a lot of accolades, Randy. What's one challenge that you had in high school? Was there any challenges that?
Oh, I mean, you know, all the kids have challenges.
Was there ever a day that you're like, you know what, I don't want to play football anymore. I don't want to. Besides your senior
Every
year.
day at practice. Yeah.
Coach Carlisle, huh?
You know, a lot of people might not know it, but Coach Carlisle, you know, some of the things he did back then, he'd probably be sent to jail for today. I mean, he would grab your face mask and throw you all around while he had your face mask in his hand.
Wow.
And but it worked. You know,
Tough love.
Yeah, it was a lot of tough love. You know, he would do it in the games, and you could hear some of the parents, you know, just like, I can't believe he did that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can remember many times he would grab my face mask and shake me around. I remember him kicking a player in the tail end one time at practice.
Well, there are a lot of stories like that with him. You know, he's also a Hall of Fame inductee as well. When you start thinking about what MRA was and where it is today, what's your thoughts on that?
You know, the athletes today have it. We didn't have the technology and the training and things back then that they do today. They've got a lot more to take advantage of.
Could you go sub 14, you think, if you had the technology? Were you that good? And you can brag on yourself.
You know, I've thought about it many times. You know, we barely had running shoes back then. You know,
And you ran on asphalt.
yeah, and so, you know, put me in a pair of Brooks running shoes or something back in 1988 or 87. You know, I think my time would have been a little lower. But yeah, it is amazing a lot of the technology and training things that they have available to them today.
All right, here's the tough question. You played a lot of sports. Which one was your favorite?
Oh, I'd have to say it was football. Yeah.
Why?
Without a doubt.
Why football?
Just when I started excelling at defense, it just was something about tackling somebody I just loved. You know, every time I got in my 3 or 4 point stance, I was wanting to hurt somebody.
Oh, wow.
You know, so don't run towards me.
Well, it's just like they were like, hey, we tried everything to run away from you.
Yeah.
What fueled that? What fueled that love? Because defensive line, you start thinking like Warren Sapp. You start thinking of all these NFL greats. What about lead line? I mean, you're in the trenches.
Yeah. I don't know. I just really enjoyed defense. You know, on offense, I played a couple of positions, but you know, even when I was at tight end, we didn't throw the ball back then. It was run off tackle right, run off tackle left.
Run away from Randy right, run away from Randy left.
Lots of it when we were on offense.
No, yeah, I'm talking about other teams.
You know, and then it was sweep right, sweep left, and then on third down it was going to be the draw. But so, you know, playing tight end, I don't even know if I ever had a pass thrown to me. You know, I was just there to block.
Wow.
And but no, it just, you know, defense, it just felt different, tackling people, and I enjoyed it.
You can see it. I think he wants to go hit somebody right now.
No, I'm way too old for that. I'll dislocate my shoulder again, or pop a knee out, or hip.
Basketball. You played for Coach DeWeese?
I didn't. No, I didn't have that opportunity. Coach Carlisle wouldn't let me play basketball.
Really?
Yep. I think there may have been a couple of other players that was allowed to play basketball, but they were tremendous athletes, you know, 6'6", you know, and height and all. But no, he wouldn't let me play. And I'll never forget, Coach DeWeese told me one day, he said, Lester, I think basketball is your best sport. And I didn't get to play it in high school.
Wow. You have regrets on that? You wish you would have played?
Yeah, kind of, yeah. But, I mean, I kind of saw Coach Carlisle's view on that, you know, because we only had a few players and could barely make a team, and basketball kind of overlapped with the end of football season, and you know, he wanted us focused on football. That's what he was hired to do, and you know, so that's what he did. But
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, as we start rounding out this episode, Randy, there's some things in here that, you start looking at shot, disc, track, football, all those sports related things. In today's society, they're talking about specializing in sports. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that?
For high schoolers, I think it's great. If you have enough athletes, you can do that. It'd be great to specialize in one thing, for sure. Back then we couldn't do it. But,
right.
Athletes today, they're a different breed. They're much faster. I mean, you watch, games on TV, college or NFL. These guys are huge and fast, and we weren't like that back in the day. Right. But it's a different world in athletes today.
Your legacy here. Randy Luster was blank. Fill that in. Leaving your legacy here as an athlete. What do you want people to know?
Obviously, I hope people remember me as a great athlete. I enjoy playing football. I really, the biggest thing is, the friendships that we made, at the time and all, and a lot of them still dear friends today. I feel honored and blessed that I still hold the record in the high hurdles. I would have never thought, nearly 40 years later, that it'd still be there. And I understand there's a good chance it's going to get broke this year, and I hope it does. Records are meant to be broken, and I'd like to be there when he does it.
Yeah,
I'm going to plan on being there.
Yeah, I would fill in your blank after talking to you, even when you got the phone call and we were talking about how we're going to set this up, and even tonight. I will say Randy Luster was a fantastic teammate, because you don't win these things without great teammates around you, but also people that trusted you. And I hold firm to, I'm reading all these, but I have underlined the one where you were named team captain. And I think team captain holds a lot of weight from it's being voted on either by your peers or your coaches. And it sets you up for life. I think it's one of those things you put on a resume. Team captain, high school, football team.
Well, I'd also like to point out, I didn't like to individualize. I could have never done anything I did without our teammates. Yeah. We had great teammates, great friends. They all excelled, and I couldn't have done anything I did without the great teammates that we had.
That's awesome. Well, Randy, congratulations.
Thank you.
It's an awesome accomplishment. I'm looking forward to tonight. It's going to be one of those cool things. We're playing prep tonight in basketball.
Right,
so,
big game.
One of those cool moments where there are two exciting moments that I look forward to. Our kids, student athletes that have signing day, that's one of the cool moments on campus. This is the other one. Seeing the former student athletes come back, see how MRA's grown, and then we induct them into the Hall of Fame where you cement your legacy. It's one of those I think of like NFL Pro Hall of Fame when they tell them I wish when you got the phone call, like somebody had a camera to get your reaction on that. So as we finish up, just what does that mean to you tonight? When tonight we're gonna read through this and we're gonna say our inductee, class of 1988, Randy Luster. How's that feel? How's that sound to you?
It's just overwhelming, just a lot of joy, honored. It's one of my greatest honors of my life, Really excited about it. Can't wait till tonight.
Awesome. Well, that was Randy Luster joining us in the OCR Lounge. Such a treat to have him back on campus, to hear these stories of just track and basketball, how he didn't even play, but almost did if Coach Carlisle would have let him. With football being his favorite sport, the two things that stood out, though, were being a team captain, and then how the honors just kind of stacked up and it never really defined who he was, how he was always going to be a great teammate. So thank you to Randy for joining us today in the OCR Lounge, and thank you to Brown Bottling for being the title sponsor of this podcast.